plans as far as free agency. How much do you think you can address wide receiver as far as free agency goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good players available free agency and cap casualty wise, and going through the draft receivers now as we speak. And there's a lot of good receivers in the draft. It's really pretty much been like that every year, but this is definitely a good year. So yeah, excited about it. I'm quite sure that we can address all of our needs, and that's what we're in the process of figuring out how to do right now.
Jeff Reback.
John, we talked to Eric a little bit about Orlando and his status, and obviously he said we're early in the process, we're still figuring something out. You, from a coaching perspective, would that be a concern having him back without, would you be concerned with him not kind of wanting to be at right tackle? Does that present any challenge to you, or knowing the guy and knowing his makeup, are you quite confident that even if he was back, everything would be fine?
Yeah, definitely that part of it. Orlando and I, and all of we have a great relationship. He's a guy that wants to win, very competitive player, very, has a lot of pride in his game, so to speak, and works really hard, competes. So, I love him as a player, I love him as a person. And, whatever the situation dictates, however it plays out, I'm sure he'll be at his best next year. And, I'd be counting on that, and I'd trust him to do that.
Charles Walker.
Is that Nestor? Nestor, you changed your look, man. I mean, wow. It's a good look. I like it, but it's just completely different.
It's a plague, Coach. Things change.
A plague, things change. Are those purple tinted glasses I see you wearing?
Only in season, not out of season. So we ask the hard questions.
All right. With that, we'll go to Charles Walker.
Hey, John. We also talked to Eric about Lamar and sort of the extension issue, and he talked about how they had a very productive meeting. As a coach, do you feel like you play a role in that as well? Maybe not directly in the negotiations, but in sort of talking to Lamar about his long-term future and sort of the vision of the team. I mean, do you consider yourself integral in that process, I guess?
Not really. I mean, we talk life, football, building the team. We spend a lot of time. Lamar and I have had a few conversations, when he was here in person after the season, and in our meeting leaving, and then on the phone a few times since, just in terms of try to include, a lot of players, especially veteran players, but especially your quarterback in the team building process for sure. And that's very important, I think, for him to be on board, to understand what we're trying to do with the offense, what we're trying to do with the personnel, how we're building things schematically, those kind of things. I want his input all the time. So that's what we talk about. I'm very confident that the other part of it, the business part of it, will be worked out in the best possible way for everybody. And, Lamar and his people and Eric, and they'll figure all that stuff out. That's not the nature of our relationship.
Ryan Mink.
Yeah, Coach, I was wondering if you could shed some light on the spot and choose proposal that we've been reading about, and how that came about, and what you really like about that proposal.
How it came about? It's been around for a number of years. I think since the early 2000s, really, the idea kind of first came up in the I don't know, the analytics circles, wherever they are, and it was brought to my attention by Matt Weiss a number of years ago when they started talking about overtime, and the 2010, 11, 12 when it was changed. And I know he thought it would be the best thing way back then. It was definitely way before its time. It still may be before its time. I don't know. We'll find out. But we like to be kind of progressive in our thinking here. It's not always the case. Sometimes the league is a little more protective, but we feel like it's kind of a move back toward tradition. It's an opportunity to make either sudden death or, if they wanted to. The other proposal is the idea of a basketball style overtime, which is fine with us. We think the main thing is the spot and choose aspect of it, Ryan, to make it just to make it fair. So any luck involved would be the bounce of the ball, not the flip of the coin. I think that's something the fans would appreciate. It's really intriguing and fun. There's a lot to it strategically. It's a very simple concept, easy to understand. I think once you get your arms around it, it'd be It's a lot fewer lines in the rule book. I can tell you that. When we wrote it up, we crossed out there's a lot of red lines through rules that are presently in there. And I think that's always a big plus. It makes the game a lot easier to understand. Once you decide who's got the ball, I think every fan can understand who's going to be the winner and what's it going to be based on. So we're really excited about it, and hopefully it'll pass.
Aditi Kinkabwala.
Hi, I kind of asked Eric this one earlier, so there's a few layers with it, if you'll stick with me. When you talked about talking to Lamar about building the team and what you would like, is there a shape to that? Is it we would like a big physical receiver, or is it we need more production, and then whoever Eric gets you, it's on your coaches to figure out how to use them?
Yeah,
It's sort of like the chicken and the egg. What comes first?
right. Well, that's not probably the best analogy, because it's not either or. It's multi-layered. There's a nuance to it. What's a better analogy? You could talk about the onion, the layers of the onion, if you want to use a metaphor, or we could talk about fabric in a blanket or something like that, or like this sweet shirt I'm wearing right now. The fabric of all the elements are intertwined. They tie together, and you've got to put all those things together. So it can never just be one thing. We want this type of receiver, or we're going to run this type of scheme. You try to put all the elements together in the best possible way, and you have to be flexible and patient and see how it plays out. What type of players are going to be available? What type of scheme and specific plays and specific rules within the routes actually are successful for us. As we start to build the thing in the off-season program, what we're good at, where guys develop, what routes they run well, how it ties into our run game. We've got where we're throwing the ball, what route combinations, who goes into what spots when. Those are all things that are multifaceted, multi-layered, that go into building an offense at this level. We're not just slapping a playbook on the table. And we know that from the standpoint of the passing game, we need to develop it to the same level that we've developed our run game. We spent the last 2.5 years or so, building probably the most creative run game in the history of the National Football League, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't want to over dramatize it, but it'd be pretty hard to argue against that, and probably the most successful. So, we're certainly very happy about that. And we want to bring that pass game along as well. And, it's hard to do everything at once. There's a lot of factors involved, and certainly personnel, to your point, is one of them. Certainly execution, precision, reps. We didn't have the reps last year in the offseason that we're going to hopefully get this year. I hope someone brings that up, because that's kind of important. Those are all the things that go into it. So absolutely, we're thinking about all those things. Lamar and I talk about those things to great extent, and it's a good process.
Bull Smoko.
Hey, John, this is somewhat related to the reps in the offseason that you mentioned. Every year there's a little bit of turnover. I can't remember a year where your coaching staff has turned over so much. I know the coordinators are there, but so many new faces. Obviously, offseason reps would be really nice, but as the head coach with this fairly new staff, what are your biggest challenges?
I don't know if there's anything it's a challenge. It's kind of just how we operate, Bo. We're working. We're in here working every day. We're building every part of our team. Offense, defense, special teams, all the elements within that. So we talk, or we have a process to what we do. We try to get on the same page in terms of concepts, terminology, how we view things, how we're going to teach routes, how we're going to teach progressions within the routes. And that goes for every aspect. Defense, and we're building our defense. We're looking at our 3-deep zone, our 2-deep zone, or how we're running our zone tools within those versus different routes. It's pretty high level, discussion, as I would hope. I don't know if people necessarily think about it too much, but guys are working at a really high level. So we want to make sure that we're on the same page, and then the opportunity with the new coaches, as you mentioned, to add ideas and kind of perspectives on things. That's a great vehicle for growth, and to expand and kind of even fine tune our football. And that's what we work really hard to do on the coaching side.
Luke Jones.
Hey, John, you were just talking about this a little bit, but some of the new coaches, T. Martin and Keith Williams, I wanted to get your thoughts on what they can bring in terms of working on that passing game. And, with having so much turnover on your staff, do you embrace bringing in some guys from, with recent college coaching experience that can kind of give you some different perspectives and maybe some fresh eyes?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, those guys were just great coaches. You know what? I try not to think too much about, where guys come from or other dynamics that come into play, and just try to get absolutely the best people for the job that fit what we're trying to do and can help us be the best football team we can be. And I'm really, really happy with the way it went this offseason and our ability to do that. Things really fell into place for us for whatever reasons. I prayed a lot about it, Luke. Maybe that was the reason. I would probably give it credit if you want to be absolutely, if I want to be absolutely honest about it. But these guys are really good people, and they're excellent coaches that fit where we're at in this time. T. Martin, he played in the NFL. He's been at different high level colleges. He knows a lot of the wide receivers in the league right now because he's been recruiting them over these years. He just came in, just did a tremendous job on his interview. Well, we did it over Zoom, but he did a tremendous job with that, and it was just a good fit. And we loved a lot of his ideas and his style and the way he coaches. And then, Keith was another guy that was just in a different kind of way, just really exceptional. Of course, he's got a big picture understanding of football, and he's coached in college for many years. But lately, he's been coaching, the best wide receivers in the league. In the offseason, they go to him. They go to Omaha of all places to find him to work on route running. Okay, that should tell you something. So, then I understood why when we had a chance to talk to him and really dive into the way he teaches the routes. So that's going to be something he's going to bring to the table across the board: wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, in terms of the way we run our routes. So I'm excited about that. And then the rest of the coaches is also, if you want to talk about any of those guys specifically too, I'm happy to.
Ryan Mink.
Yeah, Coach, I was wondering, there's been some talk this offseason about the possibility of Miles Boykin maybe shifting to tight end. I was just wondering if that's anything that you guys as coaches have talked about, if that's a possibility.
I don't know, man. I try to put my arms around what that even means. I mean, someone says move him to tight end, and it's like, well, that's it. I mean, if we were having that conversation in the staff room, I'd need a little more detail on that to understand what we're talking about here. Are you saying that he's gonna run some of the routes that tight ends run? Well, he already does that. He did that a few times last year, and I think that's something that we can definitely expand upon. Towards just depending on who's here, but he runs those routes. Those tight crossing routes over the ball, 7 routes, deep over routes, spot routes underneath, shallow crosses, inside seam routes. He runs all those routes very well. So he'll be running routes like that, but I certainly wouldn't call him a tight end. Absolutely. Miles Boykin is a wide receiver. He's not a tight end. And I wouldn't put him in there as a tight end. He's 20, 25 pounds maybe. Those tight ends are usually a little bigger than that. And he's not really a tight end body type per se, but his size can give you a great presence inside if that's what those people are talking about. And those kind of routes that he can run in there are definitely things that he's capable of doing, and I know that he wants to do.
Aditi.
Are there certain position groups where you feel you need a veteran in the room? Like when you look at your wide receivers, you talked earlier about young wide receivers in the draft. You have some young wide receivers. Is that a place where you want a veteran? Is offensive line, whatever? Or does it not really matter? Is it you just need good players and who cares what their experience is?
Well, it's not either or. It just depends on who's available, how it shakes out. It's just not black and white. I mean, you can chase something all you want, and it might not be there for you. So it starts with having good players. I mean, that's really where it starts. You have to have guys who can play. I don't care. You can be a veteran leader and a veteran presence, but if you can't play, you're a coach. That's what you are. So you've got to be able to play. So it starts with that. But having veteran players definitely is valuable, and we've seen that. Steve Smith came in and added so much. Mark Ingram. We can go down the line with veteran leadership that we've had here or we brought in over the years. That has been extremely valuable. So, you love to have those guys, but you got to have good players that can make plays. That's the bottom line.
Jimena?
Hi, Coach John Harbaugh. How accurate is the evaluation of these draft prospects watching their virtual pro day compared to the combine in the past?
Well, we'll find out. You know, the scouts have done more with the virtual pro days. I haven't gotten to that stage yet myself. Amanda, I'm watching the tape still, and that's where I'm at in the process. And once I get through the tape and get my rankings, then I'll go back through the virtual pro days and watch those. And then if necessary, I'll watch some of the interviews for specific guys. So, you know, I'm kind of on the top layer of looking at everything, where the scouts, they dive in and look at those things. It's probably not as good as the combine, I'm guessing, but it'll still be good. You know, it'll be what it is. And you know, I have a lot of confidence in our scouts. They'll have a really good handle on some of the details you're talking about, you know, how guys move, how big they are, how their frame looks. They'll have a good handle on that stuff.
Donna Jean?
Hi, Coach. Good to see you again. I know a lot of season ticket holder fans are asking because the bill just came in the mail. Any hope for fans in the stands? Anything on the news of the capacity yet?
I've heard nothing about that, but I'll go on record as saying it absolutely is going to happen. I mean, come on, you know, it's like, come on, that's a no-brainer to me. You know, unless something crazy happens, and you can never say for sure in the
Right.
world, but as far as COVID-19 is concerned, I just look at what our scientists have done. We have the vaccine. It's killing it. The vaccine is doing a great job. I say killing it. It's killing the virus, you know, I guess. I didn't like science that much. I didn't enjoy it, but they say it works, so I'm on board. It's time to get back to work. It's time to get back to school. It's time to get back to practice. It's time to get back to life, you know, period. That's my statement on it. So let's go.
Thank you. I'll pay my bill.
Kevin?
Hey, Coach, with many changes on your coaching staff this year, when those positions come available, do Rob Ryan reach out to you guys or you guys reach out to them? How does that process work in replacing coaches?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, that's a good question, Kevin. You know, Rob's, you know, everybody's different. Like some guys, I know Rob for a long time. So that conversation, you know, we talk from time to time. That's an easy call to make. I called him, but I probably had heard that he was interested before I called him, you know, somewhere. I can't remember who told me. Probably Rex. I don't know. But then other guys you don't know. You know, I had never met had never met Keith. So just reached out to those guys kind of out of the blue, and they were interested. So it's just different for every guy.
Rob?
Hey, John, you talked about trusting in the scouts as you evaluate players and you get ready for the draft. How important is it to rely on those guys who that is their job, that they're looking at, and not allow outside influences, whether it's someone getting infatuated with a player who may be within the organization but isn't a scout, who isn't diving into it as deeply as they are to influence your position in your draft?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think it depends on who that quote unquote outside influence is. You know, I mean, if it's somebody that's, you know, on the marketing side, if it's Ryan Mink, I could care less what Ryan thinks. But we have a lot of fun talking about stuff, right, Ryan? You know, and,
always.
But if it's Steve Bisciotti and he's vested interest and he's thinking about it every single day, I've got a lot of interest in what he thinks, and so does Eric. You know, so you know, I don't know what an outside person would be. The coaches have a big influence, Rob. The scouts, of course, everybody's got their role. Then finally, you've got the decision-making level that ultimately goes back to Steve. I mean, we should always acknowledge it. It's the owner that ultimately is you know, he's the point of the operation. But Eric makes the call. Ozzie has a huge influence in that. I'd like to think those guys give me a big influence on that as well. And then that's your decision-making team as far as who you take. And then, but everything leads to that point when you have to make the decision.
Jeff?
John, how's Ronnie Stanley progressing, and what are your expectations for his availability come the summer?
Yeah, I expect him to be back. It sounds good. I saw him in there last week, and he said he was doing well. And Ron Medlin tells me he's doing well. He's on schedule. He's had 2 surgeries, so that's part of it, and he's doing great. So expect him back. But if not, as you all know, we have a left tackle that can play left tackle until he gets back. So we're in good shape.
Jameson?
Jeff took my injury question. I was going to have an injury question. As far as Nick Boyle, anything? Have you gotten any updates on Nick?
See Nick too. Nick's doing great. Nick kills himself just like Ronnie, and Tavon is doing a great job. I see those guys in here rehabbing as well. So all 3 of those guys are, I would say, on track for at least training camp. I actually think I can't give you time frames. I haven't really asked that question too specifically, but I think that OTAs are not out of the question either.
Jameson, we have to wait till Friday for injury questions. Jonas?
John, since David Culley took both of these jobs under his purview, could you just outline the differences between like what T. Martin is going to do and what Keith Williams is going to do with Keith Williams being the passing game coordinator?
Oh, between T, you talking about the responsibilities of T and Keith?
Yeah.
Right. Well, T. Martin is the wide receiver coach. T is in charge of the wide receivers, everything they do. He's completely responsible for those guys as it fits into our offense. Greg coordinates the offense, but everybody's got input in every aspect of it. We try to work cooperatively. Keith is going to he's going to be involved with all the route running. Obviously, wide receivers are a big part of that specifically. Everybody, we work really hard. Like I mentioned, Jonas, like we're meeting. Those guys meet. I don't sit in all those meetings, but I organized all the meetings, and I get reports weekly on where we're at and the specifics that we're doing in the meetings in terms of making sure that we become the best possible way to teach every element of the pass game the way we want to teach it. What's best for our team and for our guys in this offense. And so that's something that's being discussed, with a fine-tooth comb, man. And those guys are hashing it out every single day, which I love. The best way to describe Keith's role, I think, would be he's definitely has a lane, and that lane is going to be precision and fundamentals that he's going to be focusing on in terms of the way we run routes, get off the ball, beat press. But of course, T's going to be coaching that too. The best way I can describe, and so will Bobby, and so will Craig Verstig. I think he's got a specific lane, and that lane is going to run into everybody's those 3 guys' neighborhoods, and they'll be working together, for our guys to play the best football that they can. So it's a little. I'll say this, Jonas. It's a little creative. It's definitely a different way of doing it. I don't know too many people have tried this before, but to me, it fit the coaches that were available. I really wanted to bring both of these guys in for their specific abilities as coaches and be as strong as we could be. And this is the way it made the most sense to me to do it. So that's how we're doing it.
Ryan?
To that, if you don't mind. So did David Culley, when he was with you guys, did he only work like passing game coordinator side? I guess his purview was tight ends and running backs as well, but he spent most of practice with the wide receivers. So with Keith Williams, he can kind of bounce, he can float between the different areas during practice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you're comparing Dave Culley to Keith Williams. I don't really understand.
Well, just because they have the same position, the same title.
No, I mean, David was title was assistant head coach, pass game coordinator, wide receivers. Keith is pass game specialist. Now, those are not the same, and I tried as best I could to put a title, together that would reflect, what Keith is doing. Dave had his title, he had his responsibilities. They were what they were. He did a great job. Now he's the head coach of the Houston Texans, and that's awesome. I mean, it's a great thing, and I'm really proud of him, and I wish him the best, except for when he plays us, but Keith's role is different. It's unique. It's not a role it's easy to compare, Jones. That's why it's like there's really no, I don't know of any other staff in the league that's kind of got that kind of a specific type of a role, because I think Keith's a very unique coach, and I'm just really excited that we have him on board to contribute. And I know our players are excited about it, and it's going to make us better.
Ryan?
All right, we'll see what you think of this idea. Part of the whole wide receiver equation this offseason is evaluating the players that you have already. Devin Duvernay seemed to really flash last season, and James Prochet, he didn't have a lot of offensive snaps, but in practice looked really good. Can you just give your evaluation of those two young wide receivers and the growth you kind of foresee for them?
Yeah, I expect those guys to do really well, going forward. I mean, they did well. And to your point, just as you said, but that's not going to be the end. I mean, I don't think you look at that right now and say, hey, this is who they are. We've got a growth mindset for our players, and definitely, especially these rookie players that didn't even have an off season last year. Can't wait to get these guys back in the off-season program in April, which we really need to have. The phase 2 and the phase 3 aspects of it, and the mini camp, critically important for the development of players, especially young players. The passing game more so than anything. I mean, if you want to have a passing game in this league that actually can attack defenses and can be successful and make the game exciting, you better give guys a chance to grow and develop and get good at it. It starts with quarterbacks, and it's receivers, tight ends, and running backs. So pass protection as well, technique and assignment. So that's really critical. But yeah, those guys, they work really hard, Ryan. I mean, they're going to make a big jump. I mean, I really expect both of those players to make a big jump in terms of their, skill set, and how they do with it remains to be seen. But I fully expect them to play really good football for us next fall.
Aditi?
As we look at the way these next 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks unfold, what is one thing that you really do miss that can't be replicated from this whole process? And what do you think is one thing that's actually better?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, just no combine, restrictions on pro days. You can perhaps have longer interviews with players. What's one piece that you can't replicate, like I said, and what's one thing that may actually make the process better than it's been in the past?
Right. Well, you can't really replicate seeing guys. There is value to, as an evaluator of an athlete, to see him in person. To see, you put the movement skills with the size, and just seeing. It's kind of like Malcolm Gladwell with the blink idea, the thin layering idea, thin slicing, I think he called it. It's been a while since I read that, but when you see enough players, like the old scout the baseball scout that used to go out, like the Clint Eastwood movie, right? I mean, when you see it because you've seen it so many times before, and you know something that's different and unique. There is value in that. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing we miss. As far as, the interviews are probably the thing that's kind of cool, because the 15-minute interview is really not that great. I don't even know how great that is at all. Maybe that's something that'll change. Maybe we won't do interviews at the combine in the future and just do virtual interviews in the future. That's what I'd vote for. Those combine interviews are just torturous. So, I think this would be a better way to do it. There's my answer. That's the question, right? That's the answer.
Excellent. Thank you. And I love the blink reference. Appreciate that one. Next week, I want a tipping point one, okay?
Okay. Who Walked the Dog? That's another good one. Malcolm Gladwell's getting all kinds of pubs here. I don't know if anybody's watching, but nobody's really watching probably.
All right, we'll do two more. We'll do Rob and then close it out with Vivian.
Dad didn't like that comment, Nestor. He didn't appreciate that. Our ratings are very good. No, on my comment, you laughed about it. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Rob.
Hey, John, I worked out with Steve Saunders several years ago, so I know his impact and what he can do. You guys were among the first organizations to bring in somebody of his expertise and put him in that role. He's been there now for about 5 years or so. What has been his impact on the team and what he's able to do for the guys?
Rob, that's a great question. And because you worked out with them, how it's kind of not an easy one to answer, because what Steve does is so unique and so good, and all his guys. Functional strength is one way to describe it. He talks about balance is strength. I think that's one interesting thing that I learned from that, in terms of all the unilateral type of lifts we do that are balanced body control, small muscle groups, awkward positions that you get put in to develop strength. I think that really go a long way toward staying healthy, because just doing a squat or doing a bench press, like we used to do, you'd bench twice a week and squat twice a week, you do legs and upper body, you do those 4-day and a week cycles and all that. You know, it's so much better now. It's just so much more advanced what people are doing and I think Steve's on the cutting edge of that. And really the results speak for themselves when you look at how far we've come in the last 5 years with injury prevention. I mean, we're a very strong physical team at the end of the year, production wise, performance wise. And we've been, a healthy team as well. And I think that goes to how hard our guys work. I mean, Steve motivates guys. They work hard. We require that, but we don't bring in guys that don't like to work. So it's really not a problem. But also the types of lifts they're doing have been really instrumental. I believe this 100% in keeping our team as healthy as we can be.
All right, we'll close it out with Viv.
Hey, John, you mentioned earlier the importance to you and the players of those April and May gatherings. If I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Goodell last spoke of those remaining virtual long-term. Is that different? Is that open for negotiation? Will you have those?
I hope he's not talking about that. I hope he's talking about other things, and there are some things that can be virtual that would be good. But if he's talking about not practicing our players, that'd be a colossal mistake. How many young quarterbacks do we have in the National Football League right now? They're starting, all right? And how many are going to be coming into the league in the next 3 or 4 years? And if you think you can just go to training camp, and develop as a quarterback, I mean, that's fantasy land. And those quarterbacks are not going to be able to line up and play successfully and have any chance against the defenses they're going to be playing against and move the ball down the field. That can be really ugly football. I promise you. You see when quarterbacks go out there that aren't prepared or, just aren't good enough, they're not ready, how that looks in games. There'll be a lot more of those games if you put those young quarterbacks out there without the proper preparation. And that goes for the wide receivers, the tight ends, and all those guys, and the offensive line. No matter what J.C. Treader says. I mean, it's fine for him. He's been in the league 12 years, okay? Just like Bruce Arians said, these young players need to come and they need to learn how, just like he had when he was young. You need to learn where the pressures are coming from. You need to work on your footwork. And to go off somewhere on your own and pay your own money and to go somewhere and think you're going to train and get yourself ready when you're a second, third year, fourth year player, that's unfair. And it's wrong. So the quality of the game is really important. The quality of the product, if you want to look at it from a business standpoint, is really important. NFL fans are accustomed to seeing really good football, and they're not going to be okay with these young players not being prepared and not being ready to go out there and be successful. Not to mention the fact that we want to talk about player safety, okay? And we want to talk about, we sit in there and we watch these tapes, and we're told by the doctors that we need to use these terms. Well, we give them the terms, but they want to see this taught. They want to see the technique that way. They want to keep the head up, the eyes out, tackle the right way, block the right way. 100% for it. That takes practice. That takes work. Okay, that's not just something that you snap your fingers and all of a sudden guys know how to do techniques. I mean, as Malcolm Gladwell will tell you, 10,000 reps. Okay, it takes thousands and thousands of reps to play the game at this kind of a level. Sure, when you're a veteran guy and you played for 10 years, you have those reps under your belt. But when you're a first, second, third year player, fourth year player, you do not have those reps under your belt. And it's most true for the quarterbacks. These are the guys that drive the game, all right, and make the NFL game what it is, make it different even than the college game. Guys like Tom Brady and guys like Peyton Manning, they all had this opportunity, okay? To deprive these young players of that, as I said, would be a colossal mistake.
Okay, Coach, appreciate your time. And to the media, obviously, we're going to have a Malcolm Gladwell quiz the next time we're together. So make sure you guys read up.
Revision history.
Great being with you guys.
Thanks for your time. I'll talk to you soon.